Hey y'all, it's me, Kevvie, and y'all are so good to me. Oh my gosh. I got so many great ass books for my birthday, and I'm so excited to show you all of them. Fucking intro, let's just get right to it. Chelsea Gray sent me money, which I used to buy 2 books. The first is Gumbo Yaya by Aurielle Marie. I don't know if y'all saw the TikTok. There was this author, Aurielle Marie, who was winning an award, but she didn't have an outfit to wear to the event because nobody makes clothes in fat people sizes. So she was like, hey Lizzo, send me that dress. And she did. Yeah, that's Aurielle Marie. The award-winning poetry collection is Gumbo Yaya. Gumbo Yaya, Aurielle Marie's stunning debut, is a cauldron of hearty poems exploring race, gender, desire, and violence in the lives of Black girls, soaring against the backdrop of a contemporary South. These poems are loud, risky, and unapologetically rooted in the glory of Black girlhood. The collection opens with a heart-rending indictment of injustice. What follows is a striking reimagination of the world, one where no Black girl dies by the barrel of the law or for loving another Black girl. Part familial archival, part map of Black resistance, Gumbo Yaya catalogs the wide gamut of Black life at its intersections, with punching cultural commentary and a poetic voice that holds tenderness and sharpness in tandem. It asks us to chew upon both the rich meat and the tough gristle, and in doing so, we walk away more whole than we began and thoroughly satisfied. Next, I got a Japanese mystery novel inspired by And Then There Were None called The Decagon House Murders. Students from a university mystery club decide to visit an island which was the site of a grisly multiple murder the year before. Predictably, they get picked off one by one by an unseen murderer. Is there a madman on the loose? What connection is there to the earlier murders? The answer is a bombshell revelation which few readers will see coming. The Decagon House Murders is a milestone in the history of detective fiction. So yeah, that one sounds real cool and I cannot wait to read it. Paul Bologna got me a couple of books. The first being Shock Value by John Waters, a memoir and trash manifesto from the legendary filmmaker and king of sleaze, John Waters. To me, bad taste is what entertainment is all about. If someone vomits watching one of my films, it's like getting a standing ovation. Thus begins Shock Value. And what a story it is. Packed into these pages are moments of incomparable humor, tenderness, and revelation, all suffused with Waters' sweet charm and mad genius wit. Readers familiar only with Waters' movies may be surprised at just how extraordinary a prose writer he is. It's true, I loved Carsick. He's as gifted a memoirist as he is a filmmaker. Here is a true love letter from a legendary director to his friends, family, and fans. Ooh, I'm so excited by that. The other book Paul got me wasn't from my wish list, but it's right up my alley. Kiki Man Ray, Art, Love, and Rivalry in 1920s Paris. In freewheeling 1920s Paris, Kiki de Montparnasse captivated as a nightclub performer, sold out gallery showings of her paintings, starred in surrealist films, and shared drinks and ideas with the likes of Jean Cocteau and Marcel Duchamp. Kiki was once the symbol of bohemian Paris, but if she is remembered today, it is only for posing for several now celebrated male artists, especially photographer Man Ray. Why has Man Ray's legacy endured while Kiki has become a footnote? The works they made together now set records at auction, charting their volatile relationship. Award-winning historian Mark Braude illustrates for the first time Kiki's seminal influence not only on Man Ray's art, but on the culture of 1920s Paris and beyond. My Aunt Jan got me 5 books. The first is October Country by Ray Bradbury. The October Country is Ray Bradbury's own netherworld of the soul, inhabited by the horrors and demons that lurk within all of us. Ray Bradbury shows with each of these 19 stories his brilliant knack for extracting the chilling essence of a world's insanities, disorders, and hang-ups. Once again, he proves himself to be America's master of the short story. Aunt Jan loves Ray Bradbury, and I'm so excited to read these stories. Jan also got me Tiny Pieces of Skull by Roz Kaveney. Earlier this year, I read her poetry collection, The Great Good Time. In the 1980s, poet and activist Roz Kaveney wrote a novel, Tiny Pieces of Skull, about trans street life and bar life in London and Chicago in the late 1970s. Much admired in manuscript by writers from Kathy Acker to Neil Gaiman, it has never seen print until now. Funny and terrifying by turns, and full of glimpses of other lives, it is the story of how beautiful Natasha persuades clever Annabelle to run away from her life and have adventures. More adventures than either of them quite meant her to have. Jan also got me 3 physical books, starting with Recitatif by Toni Morrison. Morrison's one of my all-time favorite authors, and I'm so excited to finally have the chance to read this. A beautiful, arresting short story by Toni Morrison, the only one she ever wrote, about race and the relationships that shape us through life. Twyla and Roberta have known each other since they were 8 years old and spent 4 months together as roommates in the St. Bonaventure shelter. Inseparable at the time, they lose touch as they grow older, only to find each other later at a diner, then at a grocery store, and again at a protest. Seemingly at opposite ends of every problem and in disagreement each time they meet, the two women still cannot deny the deep bond their shared experience has forged between them. In the story, Twyla's and Roberta's races remained ambiguous. We know that one is white and one is black, but which is which? Morrison herself described this story as an experiment in the removal of all racial codes from a narrative about 2 characters of different races for whom racial identity is crucial. Next, she got me Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery. Popular naturalist Cy Montgomery explores the emotional and physical world of the octopus, the remarkable connections it makes with people, and the vibrant community that arises around this complex, intelligent, and spirited creature. Practicing true immersion journalism, Montgomery befriends individual octopuses with strikingly different personalities. Montgomery also chronicles scientists' growing appreciation of the octopus's problem-solving as she tells a love story. By turns funny, entertaining, touching, and profound, The Soul of an Octopus reveals what octopuses can teach us about the meeting of 2 very different minds. The last book Jan got me is book 6 in the Louise Penny 3 Pine series, Bury Your Dead. Jan got me into this series last year, and since she had only read a few books of it, now we're kind of sort of reading it together. She just borrowed my copy of book 4, and when we get to book 6, she's gonna borrow this one too, probably. It is winter carnival in Quebec City, bitterly cold and surpassingly beautiful. Chief Inspector Armand Gamache has come not to join the revels, but to recover from an investigation gone hauntingly wrong. But violent death is inescapable, even in the apparent sanctuary of the Literary and Historical Society. Meanwhile, Gamache is receiving disquieting letters from the village of 3 Pines, where beloved bistro owner Olivier was recently convicted of murder? It doesn't make any sense, Olivia's partner writes every day. He didn't do it, you know. As past and present collide in this astonishing novel, Gamache must relive a terrible event from his own past before he can begin to bury his dead. Holy shit. Lynette Holmes sent me a gift, which I used to buy Mammoth Drop by R.J. Corgan. Murder, Mammoths, and Mimosas. Y'all may remember I've read this one already. It's an incredible, super queer mystery novel that's independently published. And since I loved it so much, I really wanted to support this author by getting a physical copy. During Kay's visit to the Black Hills, one of the scientists in Mammoth Drop Caverns is brutally murdered. Determined to unmask the killer, Kay takes up residence in nearby Woolly Hole, a gay campground filled with boozing drag queens and bottomless mimosas. Knee-deep in mammoth bones and potential suspects, Kay soon finds herself in the killer's sights. Cindy Hoover gave me a cash gift, which I used to buy the next book in R.J. Corgan's series. This one's called Murder on Masaya. Also, whoever designed the covers for these did such a fucking kick-ass job. The whole series just looks so good. Known as the Gateway to Hell, natives once threw children into Masaya's throat to appease the goddess living inside. Geologist Kay Wright is leading an expedition into Masaya to discover the volcano's secrets. Despite careful planning, Masaya devours a member of their own team. As the rest scramble to escape, they can't shake the feeling that they're being hunted. Meanwhile, across Nicaragua, revolution starts to spread, and for Kay, life will never be the same. The other book Cindy got me was The Accomplice by Steve Cavanagh, book 7 in the Eddie Flynn series. Y'all know how much I love that series, and I'm fully caught up now except for this latest one. The most hated woman in America. The Sandman killings have been solved. Daniel Miller murdered 14 people before he vanished. His wife, Carrie, now faces trial as his accomplice. The FBI, the district attorney, the media, and everyone in America believes she knew and helped cover up her husband's crimes. The lawyer. Eddie Flynn won't take a case unless his client is innocent. Now, he has to prove to a jury and the entire world that Carrie Miller was just another victim of the Sandman. With his wife on trial, the Sandman is forced to come out of hiding to save her from a life sentence. He will kill to protect her, and everyone involved in the case is a target. Even Eddie Flynn. Sam at Paper Knots Books got me 3 books. The first is After She Wrote Him by Sulari Gentill. This is the author that wrote The Woman in the Library, that NetGalley book I loved so much this year, and this was her first novel. If you get lost in a book, be sure you can find your way back. Madeleine de Lyon doesn't know where Edward came from. He is simply a character in her next book, but as she writes, he becomes all she can think about. His charm, his dark hair, his pen scratching out his latest literary novel. Edward McGinnity can't get Madeleine out of his mind. Softly smiling, infectiously enthusiastic, and perfectly damaged. She will be the ideal heroine for his next book. But who is the author? And who is the creation? And as the lines start to blur, who is affected when a killer finally takes flesh? After She Wrote Him is a wildly inventive twist on the murder mystery that takes readers on a journey filled with passion, obsession, and the emptiness left behind when the real world starts to fall away. Next is Comfort Me with Apples by Cathrynne M. Valente. Sophia was made for him, her perfect husband. She can feel it in her bones. He's perfect. Their home together in Arcadia Gardens is perfect. Everything is perfect. It's just that he's away so much. So often. He works so hard. She misses him. And he misses her. He says he does, so it must be true. He is the perfect husband, and everything is perfect. But sometimes, Sophia wonders about things. Strange things. Dark things. The look on her husband's face when he comes back from a long business trip. The questions he will not answer. The locked basement she's never allowed to enter. And whenever she asks the neighbors, they can't quite meet her gaze. But everything is perfect, isn't it? The last book she got me is Six Gun Snow White, also from Cathrynne M. Valente. A New York Times bestselling author offers a brilliant reinvention of one of the best-known fairy tales of all time, with Snow White as a gunslinger in the mythical Wild West. Forget the dark enchanted forest. Picture instead a masterfully evoked Old West where you are more likely to find coyotes as the Seven Dwarves. Insert into the scene a plain-spoken, appealing narrator who relates the history of our heroine's parents. Although her mother's life ended as hers began, so begins a remarkable tale. Equal parts heartbreak and strength, filled with fascinating glimpses through the fabled looking glass and a close-up look at hard living in the gritty, gun-slinging West. This is an utterly enchanting story, at once familiar and entirely new. Leo Bancroft bought me another favorite of mine, And by Fire by Evie Hawtrey. I read this through NetGalley last year and loved it so much. And I also have like a whole bunch of merch from it, including my And by Fire bookmark that has a little Big Ben on it. I love this book, and now I finally have it physically. Oh, so happy to have this on my shelves. Tempered by fire and separated by centuries, two extraordinary female detectives track a pair of murderous geniuses who will burn the world for their art in this mystery perfect for fans of Sarah Penner and Dan Brown. Nigella Parker, detective inspector with the city police, has a deeply rooted fear of fire and a talent for solving deadly arson cases. When a charred figure is found curled beside Sir Christopher Wren's monument to the Great Fire of London, Nigella is dragged into a case, pitting her against a murderous artist creating sculptures using burnt flesh. Nigella partners with Colm O'Leary of Scotland Yard to track the arsonist across Greater London. The pair are more than colleagues. They were lovers until O'Leary made the mistake of uttering 3 little words. Their past isn't the only buried history as they race to connect the dots between an antique nail pulled from a dead man's hands and a long-forgotten architect dwarfed by the life's work of Sir Christopher Wren. Wren, one of London's most famous architects, is everywhere the pair turn. Digging into his legacy leads the DCIs into the coldest of cold cases, a search for a bookseller gone missing during the Great Fire of London more than 350 years earlier. While looking for their friend, a second pair of detectives, a lady-in-waiting to the Queen and a royal fireworks maker, discovered foul play in the supposedly accidental destruction of St. Paul's Cathedral. But did that same devilry lead to murder? And can these centuries-old crimes help catch a modern-day murderer? As Nigella and O'Leary rush to decode clues, past and present, London's killer artist sets his sights on a member of the investigative team as the subject of his next fiery masterpiece. Read Becca got me 2 books. The first is a trans novel called The Seep by Chana Porter. Trina Fast Horse Goldberg Onika is a 50-year-old trans woman whose life is irreversibly altered in the wake of a gentle but nonetheless world-changing invasion by an alien entity called the Seep. Through the Seep, everything is connected. Capitalism falls, hierarchies and barriers are broken down. If something can be imagined, it's possible. Trina and her wife Deba live blissfully under the Seep's utopian influence until Deba begins to imagine what it might be like to be reborn as a baby, which will give her the chance at an even better life. Using Seep tech to make this dream a reality, Deba moves on to a new existence, leaving Trina devastated. Heartbroken and deep into an alcoholic binge, Trina follows a lost boy she encounters, embarking on an unexpected quest. In her attempt to save him from the Seep, she will confront not only one of its most avid devotees, but the terrifying void that Deba has left behind. A strange new elegy of love and loss, the Seep explores grief, alienation, and the ache of moving on. She also got me Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. Vern, 7 months pregnant, and desperate to escape the strict religious compound where she was raised, flees for the shelter of the woods. There, she gives birth to twins and plans to raise them far from the influence of the outside world. But even in the forest, Vern is a hunted woman. Forced to fight back against the community that refuses to let her go, she unleashes incredible brutality, far beyond what a person should be capable of, her body racked by inexplicable and uncanny changes. To understand her metamorphosis and to protect her small family, Vern has to face the past, and more troublingly, the future outside the woods. Finding the truth will mean uncovering not only the secrets of the compound she fled, but also the violent history of America that produced it. Jack from Spread Book Joy has been a lifelong reader of the Discworld. So for my birthday, she got me the Discworld novel Small Gods. Lost in the chill deeps of space between the galaxies, it sails on forever, a flat, circular world carried on the back of a giant turtle. Discworld. A land where the unexpected can be expected, where the strangest things happen to the nicest people, like Brother, a simple lad who only wants to tend his melon patch. Until one day he hears the voice of a god calling his name. A small god, to be sure, but bossy as hell. Bethan Brininga Socolar sent me a really nice gift, which I used to buy a few books from shopqueer.co. You may remember a month or so ago I made a video about this brand new queer bookstore that partners with queer authors so they can get better royalties, and they are still fundraising for their queer book bus, which will go around America bringing a queer bookstore into towns and neighborhoods where queer books have been banned, giving access to children who need them. I was so excited to be able to use Bethan's support to then support shopqueer.co, and I picked up 2 books from them. The first is The Essential June Jordan. June Jordan is my favorite poet, and this is by far my favorite collection of poetry, and I'm so excited to finally be able to have it physically on my shelves. For the poet and activist June Jordan, Neither poetry nor activism could be disentangled from the other. Her storied career came to chronicle a living, breathing history of the struggles that defined the USA in the latter half of the 20th century, and her poetry accordingly put its dazzlingly stylistic range to use in exploring issues of gender, race, immigration, representation, and much else besides. Here, above all, are sinuous, lashing, and passionate lines, virtuosic in their musicality and always bearing the stamp of Jordan's irrepressible personality. The essential June Jordan allows new readers to discover, and old fans to rediscover, the vital work of this endlessly surprising poet. The other book I got through shopqueer.co is Lavender House by Lev A.C. Rosen. A delicious story from a new voice in suspense, Lev A.C. Rosen's Lavender House is Knives Out with a queer historical twist. Lavender House, 1952. The family seat of recently deceased matriarch Irene Lamontagne, head of the famous Lamontagne soap empire. Irene's recipes for her signature scents are a well-guarded secret, but it's not the only one behind these gates. This estate offers a unique freedom where none of the residents or staff hide who they are. But to keep their secret, they've needed to keep others out. And now they're worried they're keeping a murderer in. Irene's widow hires Evander Mills to uncover the truth behind her mysterious death. Andy, recently fired from the San Francisco police after being caught in a raid on a gay bar, is happy to accept. His calendar is wide open, and his secret is the kind of secret the Lamontagnes understand. Andy has never imagined a world like Lavender House. He's seduced by the safety and freedom found behind its gates, where a queer family lives honestly and openly. But that honesty doesn't extend to everything, and he quickly finds himself pawned in a family game of old money, subterfuge, and jealousy. And Irene's death is only the beginning. When your existence is a crime, everything you do is criminal. And then I had a few bucks left from Bethan, so I used that to get Rika Aoki's poetry collection, Why Dust Shall Never Settle Upon This Soul. Rika Aoki wrote Light from Uncommon Stars, which was one of my favorite trans books this year, so I'm really, really excited to read this poetry collection. In the old days, Rika Aoki would be tagged as some kind of prophet, and the thumb-sucking masses, bewildered and flummoxed by her talking stories, would stone or torch her. Forged from the ceaseless grappling match with life, living, identity, obligations, duty, home, and selfhood, the poems in this striking collection are a libretto to what survives, what is elusive, what transforms or transmogrifies, and what remains primal and elemental. No, sharp-eyed, witty, passionate, and just, a lament for trans losses that is also somehow a celebration of life. This book is an important contribution to our literature, and also that rare thing, a book of poetry you won't be able to put down. Nat from Nerdy Nat reads Got Me Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. 16-year-old trans boy Benji is on the run from the cult that raised him, the fundamentalist sect that unleashed Armageddon and decimated the world's population. Desperately, he searches for a place where the cult can't get their hands on him, or more importantly, on the bioweapon they infected him with. But when cornered by monsters born from the destruction, Benji is rescued by a group of teens from the local Atchison LGBTQ+ Center, affectionately known as the ALC. The ALC's leader, Nick, is gorgeous, autistic, and a deadly shot, and he knows Benji's darkest secret. The cult's bioweapon is mutating him into a monster deadly enough to wipe humanity from the earth once and for all. Still, Nick offers Benji shelter among his ragtag groups of queer teens, as long as Benji can control the monster and use its power to defend the ALC. Eager to belong, Benji accepts Nick's terms until he discovers the ALC's mysterious leader has a hidden agenda and more than a few secrets of his own. Robin from Cat Dancer's Kaleidoscope of Books and Stuff got me Pew by Cathrynne Lacey. In a small, unnamed town in the American South, a church congregation arrives to a service and finds a figure asleep on the pew. The person is genderless, racially ambiguous, and refuses to speak. one family takes the strange visitor in and nicknames them Pew. As the town spends the week preparing for a mysterious forgiveness festival, Pew is shuttled from one household to the next. The earnest and seemingly well-meaning townspeople see conflicting identities in Pew, and many confess their fears and secrets to them in one-sided conversations. Pew listens and observes while experiencing brief flashes of past lives or clues about their origins. As days pass, the void around Pew's presence begins to unnerve the community, whose generosity erodes into menace and suspicion. Yet by the time Pew's story reaches a shattering and unsettling climax at the Forgiveness Festival, the secret of their true nature, as a devil or an angel or something else entirely, is dwarfed by even larger truths. Catherine Lacey's third novel is a foreboding, provocative, and amorphous fable about the world today, its contradictions, its flimsy morality, and the limits of judging others based on their appearance. I also decided to get myself a book for my birthday, and I picked up the hardcover of Alexandra Billings' This Time for Me. Y'all might remember this book. I loved it so much, I read it twice in the month it came out. Once as an ebook, once as an audiobook. And she tweeted to me that if I sent her a copy of my book, that she would sign it for me. Born in 1962, Alexandra Billings grew up in a decade in which being herself was illegal. When she started transitioning in 1980, the word transgender was not commonly used. With no trans role models and no path to follow, Alexandra did what her family, teachers, and even friends said was impossible. Alexandra forged ahead. From profound lows to exhilarating highs, This Time for Me captures the events of a pioneering life, an award-winning actor and history-making LGBTQ and HIV/AIDS activist. Alexandra shares not only her own ever-evolving story, but also the parallel ways in which queer identity has dramatically changed since the Stonewall riots in 1969. She weaves a true coming-of-age story of rich, imaginative lives, of friends being swept away by the plague that decimated the community, of her determination to establish a career that would break boundaries, and of the recognition of her own power. A celebration of endless possibilities, Alexandra's bracing memoir is a fight-to-the-death revolution against all expectations. And finally, there's a handful of books which were bought for me, but I don't know who got them. So if you got me one of these, please let me know so I can properly thank you. The first is Me and My Dysphoria Monster by Laura Kate Dale. Y'all might remember my Getting Gay with NetGalley video. I read this book and I loved it so much. I knew I needed a physical copy so I could share it with all the children in my life. Nisha's monster follows her everywhere. It used to be small, but recently her monster has begun to grow. And as her monster gets bigger and bigger, Nisha feels more and more unlike herself. When people refer to her as a boy, or when she tries to hide her true gender identity, Nisha's dysphoria monster grows larger and larger. Until one day, Nisha meets Jack, a trans man who shows Nisha how she can shrink her dysphoria monster back down to size. This touching story is the perfect book for discussing gender dysphoria with children, explaining what it is and how they and their families can deal with it. It also includes an accompanying guide for parents with further information about gender dysphoria, terminology, and first-hand examples of the author's own experiences. Someone also got me the recent reprinting of my favorite Mary Roberts Rinehart novel, The Album. Even in the early 1930s, Crescent Place is a neighborhood out of the past. The 5 Victorian mansions and the remote patch of pasture placed between them have the air of the 1890s, even as the city, once miles away from this idyllic retreat, encroaches and surrounds the enclave. But while these rarefied residences may appear calm on the outside, their isolated interiors contain dark secrets, prolonged feuds, and generations of high-toned trouble. In these houses are a husband and wife who fight constantly, and another couple who hasn't spoken to each other in 2 decades. There is a widow in permanent mourning, and a daughter whom the newspapers call psychotic. And there is a bedridden old woman who is about to be killed with an axe. When her murder shatters the well-mannered quiet of the cul-de-sac, the tabloids delight in trumpeting Crescent Place's peculiarities. But as the search for the killer intensifies, it becomes clear that the area's strangest secrets have yet to be revealed. A suspenseful mystery enriched by sly social satire and set against the backdrop of the Great Depression. The album is a memorable whodunit from one of the most beloved and best-selling authors of the Golden Age era. Somebody also got me the DVD/Blu-ray of the new Death on the Nile movie. Now, I know a lot of people didn't care for it, and it's a terrible adaptation or whatever, but fuck, I love that movie so much. I've watched it like at least 5 times since it's come out. I don't know who got it for me, so please, if you did, let me know. And then these last books, it says on my Amazon wish list that they've been purchased, but I've not received them. So if you were the one who got it for me, I wanted to let you know something may have gone wrong with the order, because I haven't received it. Terry Pratchett's Weird Sisters. Witches are not by nature gregarious, and they certainly don't have leaders. Granny Weatherwax was the most highly regarded of the leaders they didn't have. But even she found that meddling in royal politics was a lot more difficult than certain playwrights would have you believe. Oh my gosh, y'all, that was amazing. Such a fantastic collection of books. Oh, I want to read all of them right away. I've got such an incredible year of reading ahead of me with all of these. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I am sincerely so grateful to all of you for sending me these, and for those of you who support my channel and watch me and comment and like and all those things. You bring so much joy into my life, and I just thank you. Thank you. God bless. Let me know in the comments below which of these books you think I need to read first. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if it pleases and sparkles, I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!